First of all, I agree Jesus Christ is the Lord.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our second hour on this Friday, March 22nd, 2013 edition of the Hagman and Hagman Report. We are joined now by our very special guest, Mr. Steve Quayle, and Financial Insider V. Last time we spoke with Financial Insider V was on the 11th of January, where he made a series of statements that turned into a bunch of news headlines, and starting with Japan devaluating their currency to the currency war starting from China, and now we see Russia and China partnering up, and the currency wars press on. And with that, we have Steve Quayle on the line and Mr. V. Steve, are you there?
Hi, Joe. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Doug, and welcome, V. Tonight we're going to give you the scenario that is unfolding, and the title for tonight's show is Guerrilla Finances, and the guerrilla warfare that's taking place that ultimately is designed to not only lessen the planet's population, but to pretty much rape, pillage, and plunder anybody who's got anything in the bank whatsoever. Now, V was very prescient, very timely, and prophetic when he said that we were going to see the stock market rise to new highs and that we were going to see it basically begin to, it meaning the stock market, draw a lot of money from the foreign currencies and especially from different depositor nations as they flee the euro. Now we've got the Cyprus bank. So, V, why don't you give your take 2 months later than when you were on the show with me last time? Because right now, I don't think, and I want you to explain, if you would, sir, explain to people why what happens in Cyprus doesn't stay in Cyprus. I mean, it shows up on trading platforms across the world. And tell us where you see this thing going and what you see taking place right now from all of your sources and from what you know.
Well, first and foremost, gentlemen, it's great to be back. It's been, 2 months, and we've seen a lot of things happen. And what happens in Cyprus doesn't stay in Cyprus. Okay, one of the things I put up an alert that I put out there on Steve Quayle's website was, I said that Cyprus is a petri dish that through which the contagion of the euro shall do its work. And unlike a typical petri dish, it's not going to be contained. This is something that it has been festering for decades. This has been something that ever since Cyprus came involved with the euro, it's been really, really causing some serious problems. So Cyprus is basically, we've all heard the adage, we've all heard the saying, the axiom, the canary in the coal mine. Cyprus is that canary. In Cyprus, what goes on in Cyprus is going to affect the whole entire market in the European Union, and it's going to stem exactly to the U.S. Now, if anybody's been following some of the alerts that I've been putting up on Steve's website, one of the things I predicted, I said, is this. Okay, and there's a couple of things that everybody needs to be mindful of. Last time I was on January 11th, I also said it as well. What you have in the Western banking system, in the Western banking world as we know it, there's one overarching theme, and that is the dollar as the reserve currency. Okay, that's the overarching theme. The whole entire Western banking model is built on the dollar, all right? So when the crisis is occurring in Europe, I said that you're going to see a flight to the dollar and you're going to see a flight to U.S. Treasuries, and that's exactly what you see happening, okay? Things right now are much more higher risk than they've ever been, because we've seen so many corrections in the bond market in terms of corporate, corporate hedge funds, sovereign government sovereign funds, and it's making such an impact on what's occurring that it's going to begin to start ravaging, worldwide, wealth, and it's going to really bring about a massive economic crash that's going to occur within the markets. And so every play that they're doing right now is to keep that dollar system going. Every play that they're doing right now is to make the dollar the last safe haven. Okay, so everybody's flocking to it. But the plan is, ultimately, the end game is a global currency. So how do you bring about a global currency? Simple. You got to get all the people on the same boat. And when you put everybody on the same boat, you push it out to sea, and then you sink it. That's exactly what's happening here. Everybody's running to the dollar. Everybody's buying T-bills. Everybody's investing into U.S. real estate. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I've heard reports, from my sources where, what they're trying to do is reinflate the real estate market in this country. And, you have a lot of foreign investors, Chinese and Russian, that are buying tremendous amounts of U.S. real estate. Why? They're being suckered into it again. Okay? This is the game. This is the scheme. So you're going to see again that this temporary flight to the dollar is going to be the temporary, safe haven, this temporary life jacket that people are jumping into. But it's so full of holes, and it's going to wind up sinking everybody.
And I think it's important, V, that people understand that the global political developments and offshoots of this are very critical. Cyprus does have a natural resource in our natural gas. The Gazprom, owned by the Russians, is one of the largest, not one of the largest, the largest natural gas consortium in the world. Now, it's interesting to me that we got the reports that the Russian oligarchs and the billionaires were tipped off a couple days in advance. It just goes to show you that the KGB are better bankers than the bankers in the West, and that is a true statement. Given the fact that now the Russians and Chinese are openly advocating, as Joe Hagman just declared, it's on the front of Drudge, this new alliance and allegiance, the days of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, they're over. They're only being kept alive by massive amounts of money being printed, and we, meaning the United States government / Federal Reserve, which is not the United States government, is monetizing all the debt. So as you see this thing in Cyprus, what effects will it have, for instance? And again, this is something for people to understand. The derivative market, when the geniuses at Goldman Sachs and Morgan and others developed financial instruments of mass destruction, as Warren Buffett calls derivatives, how is this going to affect the derivative market? They can write it down as they've done, from 1.5 quadrillion to 750 trillion, but still, Europe is holding the bag on a lot of those toxic waste byproducts, and no one, to my knowledge, unless you've seen it, and obviously you're in the financial world on a deeper way than I am, but I haven't seen anybody addressing the toxicity of the derivatives market as it is basically relating to the cascading domino destruction of countries. And let's face it, the euro is dead by design, and then, as you said, everybody will flee in the American dollar, and then at the appropriate time and place, the American dollar will be absolutely placed on the trash heap of history. So if there's kind of three questions in there, do you kind of understand what I'm asking, or I'm trying to be as clear as I can?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's my take on it. What's happening right now with Cyprus, it's no secret. Europe's biggest natural gas supplier is Russia. Okay, we both know that the Grecians haven't been paying their gas bill. Okay, and so there's some issues there. So Russia has been very long suffering in terms of getting some of its payments out of the eurozone. Now this whole Cyprus banking debacle occurred, and now the Russians realized, and they made a very, very smart strategic move. Okay, number one, a lot of the billionaire oligarchs were tipped off. They pulled their money out. Okay. Number two, Cyprus is in a world of hurt, and they understand. And the people of Cyprus have had it with the euro. They want out of the euro. They want to go back to the Cypriot pound. They want to go back to the way things used to be. Okay, but the thing is with the eurozone is the eurozone cannot allow a member to leave, because if the smallest member leaves, then that's going to create a rush to the exit doors that the elites that are running the euro can't afford to happen. So it has to be made an example. So how do you make it an example? You got to keep shackling this thing. All right, it's got to pay back its loans. It's got to pay back its debt. And Cyprus is not going to, the people of Cyprus at least don't want to let that happen, even though they've officially passed capital controls into law. Okay. Now, the blue chips that the Russians are doing, they're coming in trying to leverage Cyprus and the people of Cyprus and try to, I wouldn't be surprised if you see an oppositional political movements really get financed and spring up from Russian financing, because what's going to occur is that the Russians are not going to sit idly by and allow, well, it's not completely proven reserves, but the Russians are not going to sit there and allow the potential of 60 trillion cubic feet of natural gas to just get away from them, you see? So, that's what's going on with Cyprus. Now, the contagion with the Eurozone is that, they've been over-leveraged considerably on a tremendous amount of American subprime mortgages, on a ton of derivative debt and, collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps that have been sold all throughout the world via Wall Street. So you had a ton of debt that's being held by many European banks. In fact, it was during my old stay at the Royal Bank of Scotland, my old employer. I remember when they purchased ABN AMRO, the biggest Dutch bank. Everybody thought that was supposed to be the biggest bank merger in history, and sure enough, as soon as RBS bought it out, they began to look at ABN AMRO's book, and they were sitting on nothing but toxic assets. So that turned into the downfall of RBS, so to speak, at that time. So no one's talking about the derivative toxicity simply because it's too big to talk about. You've heard of too big to fail? This is too big to talk about, all right? It's just too monstrous, because if you begin to bring to light, hey, you know what? We got 1.5 quadrillion in derivative debt, and they can't really write that off. I mean, they could try to, put the numbers down to 600 billion or 750 billion, but it's 1.5 trillion, but it's 1.5 quadrillion. You can't get around a number like that. Even if it's 100 trillion, it's still bigger than the world economy. Okay, so what's going to happen is, because of the simple fact that nobody wants to talk about it because it will scare people into waking them up, and that's just something that they just cannot allow. So the American will keep dreaming. The American will say to himself, hey, I've done nothing today, and tomorrow it looks like nothing's going to happen either. So that's the mode that the Americans are going to be on. They're just not going to be paying attention to, what's really happening with the market, and they have an isolated mentality, and but they don't understand that global economics is so integrated that this Cyprus thing is very serious. Okay, gentlemen, I mean, if you look at the moves geopolitically of what's occurring economically in Cyprus, and then all through the world, gentlemen, we are in a Cold War. This is a brand new Cold War. I have no other way to put it to you. Okay, I have no other way to describe it other than the fact that you have, this fight over resources and banking control and monetary control in Europe, okay, between the Russians and the Chinese interests and the West. Then you have these little, what do you call it? These testings, these little, testing of the fences, so to speak, in air defenses with Russian bombers flying over. Yes, exactly. Beta testing these, Russian bombers flying over Guam. I mean, you're seeing all these maneuvers. North Korea, which is nothing but a puppet junk state of the Chinese, threatening to attack America. The cyber attack that occurred in South Korea where their banking computers went down for hours. Okay, these are serious things. Okay, we've seen it all over the world. In Europe, people cannot access ATMs. Over in America, online banking is down. In Asia, online banking is suffering. ATM networks are suffering. Banking networks are suffering the world over. Why? It's simple. Years ago, I was told about it, and then, months ago when I started, putting a post when I started sharing information with Steve, Steve's been warning about it as well. This is all a setup. Okay, before the big pop happens, you're going to see a massive bank hack. And that hack is going to wipe out a lot of accounts, all right? And they're going to play it off as some sort of a capital control. And that's what you're seeing, folks. You are seeing right now massive capital controls happening right now officially in Cyprus. But there are capital controls happening in Greece, in Spain that nobody's talking about, in Italy that nobody's talking about. So this is going to spread to here. And let me tell you, the word on the street is, okay, the word from the grapevine, straight from the horse's mouth, that whole tax, bank levy tax that they're talking about, that they're doing in Cyprus, They have that in store for here as well. Except over here, it's not going to be 10%. It's not going to be 15%. It's going to be 30%. Now, the question to you American people that I want to ask is, are you prepared for that? Are you going to sit down and take that? Are you just going to roll over and let that happen to you? Think about it. This is dangerous, dangerous things that are occurring economically.
V, if I can interject a question here, just to be clear on what you said. You're talking about a 30% levy on deposit accounts on Americans.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing? Now, can you tell me how that would play out? Are we going to wake up Monday morning and find out that instead of $10,000 in the bank, we have $7,000? And is the president going to get on the airwaves and say, well, we had to do this for whatever reason? Or, I mean, is this what we are to expect? Are we going to have some sort of warning, or is this going to just happen?
No, there's going to be a warning to those who are awake, of course. This is the warning, and I'm going to tell you exactly how the thing's going to play out.
I think that's what we're doing tonight, AV. I think that's what we're doing tonight. You know, again,
exactly
Doug, you're Doug. Here's the critical question, V, and I want you to address this: futurism versus what is plain and evident. Because I've been, seeing the disconnect. Today in my emails, I have had more disconnected emails from reality from quote believers and those who claim to be believers, and people attacking the alerts I put up and attacking what we're saying, and got one guy telling me I must be from hell, a father, Christian, because I'm lying, and I, it's amazing to me how the people that we're trying to help, this can go fast. Why don't you explain to people how fast it can go from even the cyber attack position? They could blame the cyber attack for the draining of people's bank accounts, and then say, well, we've got to, we'll try and rebuild whatever we can rebuild, but in order to bring the country back on a functioning basis, we hereby, take 30%. Judge Napolitano, I put a video up of him saying they have the authority to do that. So if nations who if we are the ultimate commensurate broke nation, I love what the United States used to be. I don't love what it's become, okay? The point is that we are the ultimate debtor. So I guess I want you to address the speed at which it can happen, because Doug is assuming it's – and Doug, I think what you're saying is, or maybe a better question would be to ask him, how soon and how fast could this go, and what would be the things that would give us a heads up that that's in process? Is that a good question, Doug?
Yeah, perhaps I didn't articulate it well, but yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking for. What's it going to look like, and how quickly, and yeah, exactly. So go ahead.
Sure. Well, this is what's going to happen. All of you are going to go to sleep on a Friday night. You're going to enjoy your weekends, spend time with your family, your kids, your grandkids. You go to church on Sunday, had a wonderful time, and then you go to sleep on Sunday night, and you wake up. Okay, you wake up, Monday morning. Some of us who are awake on Sunday nights will watch the Asian markets open, and you're going to hear about a collapse in Japan. You're going to hear about a massive economic contraction, the likes of which no one has ever seen. And that's going to ripple so powerfully across the whole entire Asian continent. And it's going to ripple like a lightning rod directly into Europe. From Europe, which is already fractured and blistered and falling to pieces, you're going to see an explosion economically where their markets will just go up in flames at that point. Massive sell-offs will occur. Aggregate asset prices will start going through the roof, and that's what you're going to see. Oil start going skyrocketing like you would not believe. Okay, as the clock ticks down and it's 9, and getting close to markets opening in New York, you're going to have first of all massive pre-market sell-offs that are going to happen. Like people are going to start panicking. Wall Street opens up, and all of a sudden it's a massive sell-off. Okay, massive sell-off. Why? Because now the game's afoot. Now it's on because Japan just went down. Europe, which is nothing but a cancerous, tumor-ridden carcass. Okay, that is what Europe is. And when that thing finally falls to pieces, all right, that's going to be the last and final support system. And then the UK, all right, that's going to be the last final support system, and that's going to create the ripple shock that's going to bring us down. All right, so by 12 o'clock in the afternoon in New York East Coast Standard Time, you're going to see a massive sell-off in the Dow. The Dow's going to drop to 5,000 points, at which point the trading computers have already calculated the rate of the collapse, the speed of the trades is going to be so massive that's going to trigger the fail-safes. Once the fail-safes trigger, by 12 o'clock noon, when everybody goes to lunch, the markets will be shut. It will not open. Okay. Once it does not open, that next day, all your banking is going to come to a stop. Your ATM transactions are going to freeze. Then the country is going to fall into crisis. At which point, America is finally. At which point, the leaders, the sold-out, bought and paid-for leaders of this nation, are going to pull back the curtain and say, "Hey, this is the problem," and they're going to finally show you the monster that's behind the curtain, and that monster is called the derivative market. And when they finally explain what this derivative market is and the damage that it has done in decimating the wealth of Americans and people worldwide, they're going to tell you, listen, we can get out of this mess, but it's going to require, the money that we frozen in your assets you can't get to, that $10,000 you have, that $100 you have. Well, we're going to have to take 30% of it. Okay, because that's going to help us to get back and get back in get the system up and running again, try to get this engine kick-started again, and that's exactly the model they're gonna try and do. That's what they're prepared for. That's what all their papers are stating. That's what they're gearing up for. Will the American people comply with something like that? I think a good number of them will not, but there's going to be a vast majority of them that will. And that's exactly how it's going to play off. This whole euro crisis, now we can talk about the euro and Cyprus till we're blue in the face. It is a serious situation. It's very grave. But do not be distracted from the real situation that's going to bring this whole thing down, and that is Japan. Never for 1 second take your eye off of Japan, because what's happening in Japan is super critical. Okay, why? Well, gentlemen, I'll tell you why Japan is critical. In the last 30 years, you have seen a massive transfer of wealth from Western economies over into the Asian countries. What are the dominant economic powers in Asia? China, Japan, South Korea, India. These are major manufacturing hubs that pick up the slack and have replaced what America used to be. Okay? So when Japan goes, it is going to be the elite's way of siphoning the wealth of those nations. Okay, they're doing this is a global strip mining program. They're going to siphon when Japan blows. It's going to siphon the wealth of the Asians, and that's going to translate to siphoning and pillaging the wealth of what's left of the Europeans, and then finally it's on home to America. That's the plan.
Well, and Doug, I want to say this: if I wanted to use some alliteration, I'd call them the planetary plunderers, piranhas from perdition. And I'm just trying to put this into a graphic way. In other words, they're going to eat up everything. And Doug and Joe, I was really considering this, considering everything that's going on. And today I talked to maybe a half a dozen people I talked to some really amazing ladies today, a couple of guys that didn't get it, and God bless you ladies, your intuition is so right. But I went to Luke 16, 1 through 13, and I want to say something that's really critical. A lot of Christians are frightened of everything, but they're more frightened, and B, you and I talked about this, they're more frightened of taking responsibility for their own finances, and that apathy, passivity, as it applies to their future and their financial future, is something that absolutely still astonishes me after being, in the precious metals business for 35 years, but a talk show host for 20 years and a newsletter writer for 10 years before that. Now, I want to basically read Luke 16 because this is critical. Now, it will put some stuff into perspective. Basically, Luke 16 is the parable of the unjust steward. And I want to read this because it will really help people to understand that when Jesus spoke in parables, he was teaching amazing eternal principles. And this is something that Christians have got to grasp. And let me change that word. Followers of Jesus, I've corrected myself, and I'm going to do it until I no longer use that. Believers who are blood-bought and washed in the blood of the Lamb, believing that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, who is the Savior of the entire world, and that no man comes unto the Father except through the sacrifice and faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. So let me read this. And Jesus said unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward. That's a man that he put in charge of all his funds. And the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. And he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer my steward. In other words, you've blown it, and I want to know how much you blew. Then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? For my Lord take away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig to beg, I'm ashamed. I am resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him, and said unto the first, how much do you owe unto my Lord? And he said, 100 measures of oil. He said unto him, take thy bill, sit down quickly, and write 50. Then he said to another, and how much owest thou? Then he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said, take unto him thy bill, and write 80. And the Lord commended, now listen to this, the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. Now here's the clincher. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And I say unto you, and this is Jesus speaking, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fall they may receive you into everlasting habitations. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also much, and he that is unjust is in the least is unjust also much. If you therefore have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to you your trust in the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give to you that which is your own? Now that's a principle of God's word. Now here, how does it apply? Real simply this, and then V, I'd like your comment. You've been in the financial world, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, in the biggest bank in the world 4 years ago, doing a lot of stuff. But what is it, from your experience, that, number one, you're a Christian too, but as a follower of Jesus, as someone in the financial, why is it that what is so transparently fraud? In other words, somebody's saying, hey, I can do a better job of managing your money, so people invest. They get maybe a pissant 3 to 4% return a year, and they think they're cutting a fat hog, and yet the brokerage firms and all the people who wheel and deal and distribute their funds all over and reap horrific profits, what is that so enables the people of God to be pillaged and plundered? Am I making myself clear in the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one thing that the Word of God says. It says that the enemy has blinded the people of this world, and that's exactly what's happening. You have people. Look, the way the enemy has set up the system, right? The way the whole financial system. If you take a step back and look at it, it's a system that is so intimidating for most people. Okay, that people are so intimidated by markets and economics. And one of the things that I always tell people, that I always say, is they make economics and finance seem like it's some sort of a black art. That it's like something that's mastered only by the select initiated few, and something for the rest of the people just to take the advice of the quote-unquote professional and go along with it. So that's the mentality in the last, I'd say, 100 years or so, right? Prior to that, the main change has been responsibility. Is people just don't want to take responsibility for their own, financial futures. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, people understood what real wealth was. People understood the difference between money versus currency. Today, those lines are blurred. I'm sure you guys have seen the YouTube video of some gentleman walking around with an ounce of gold, and he will say, hey, he's on some beach in California, and say, hey, can you guess me the price of this ounce of gold? And the vast majority, 99% of the people, in fact, heck, all the people, they're just like, oh, well, it's probably $35 or $40. There's a mental disconnect. So that's, you take that into account, number one. Number two, Christians, for the most part, the form of Christianity that I see in America is such a limp-wristed, milquetoast, baby form of Christianity that, to begin with, it's a disgusting joke. they have no responsibility, the vast majority of people. They go to churches where the Word of God is not preached in its full entirety. They go to churches where the pastors and the leadership are more enamored by programs than prayer. They're more apt to teach about, submitting to the government and that's the will of God, or they're more apt to just talk about the cares and concerns of life. They fail to teach about the fact that there is an enemy out there that walks about as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. They fail to teach the fact that we live in a world where Lucifer himself controls every aspect of this whole thing. Okay, from the banking system, that's his system. He created it. It's a system of debt and enslavement. I know it. I've been in it. I've seen it. It is a system of debt and enslavement. The enemy, they fail to teach about the fact that your children are being seduced. So if the vast majority of Christians who are so willing to let their children go to public schools, you see, you don't lose. There's a man of God, I think, who said, you don't lose your kids, you just give them away.
Good statement.
You're talking about a church. You're talking about a Christian generation in this country that allows their children to sit there and watch all sorts of junk on TV. You have a Christian generation where the fathers, the Bible commands the father to be the educator in the home, to lead his family. That's not happening anymore. What do we do with our kids in church? Oh, we put them in Sunday school. Sunday school follows the same format as public school, which is a format of Prussian communistic socialistic system that doesn't create individuals but creates slaves and those who are just worker bees. So that's the same thing that's happening in church. So it is the natural inclination for the Christian in this country that if he's sitting on 10 grand, 20 grand, and he invests it, he'll take it to his local bank, sit down with his quote-unquote financial advisor who doesn't know his elbow from his rear end, and say, hey, what's a good thing for me to put in? Oh, what about this IRA? You'll get a 1.25% rate of growth, and the guy thinks he's getting a great deal. It's insanity. Meanwhile, you take somebody who will take, invest 20, 30 grand in silver, all of a sudden silver prices on the spot market drop a little bit, and they're ready to have a heart attack. I just don't understand this. People don't understand what currency versus money is. People like to write off responsibility, so that's exactly what you see is happening. Is they don't want to deal with it. And besides, let's not forget, gentlemen, after all, before anything bad happens, Jesus is going to come and rapture us out, so it's okay. Do you see what I'm saying? This whole thing is convoluted.
Wow. If I can ask this, obviously what we're seeing happening in Cyprus and what you are saying will happen here, I've gotten a great many emails today of people saying, well, we see what's going on in Cyprus. How can we protect ourselves if and when this happens here in this country? Of course, we see the long lines at ATMs, and we see I've received a lot of questions, like, for example, is people that had money at home, in Cyprus that had the actual cash in their homes, are they better off? I mean, how does one, especially a Christian, prepare for something like this?
Sure, that's a great question, Doug, and that's something that's been burdening in my heart. One of these days I would love to just maybe get together and just teach a course on survival finance, so to speak.
That's what we're trying to. Hey, Davey, that's kind of what we're trying to do tonight. And let me answer that because, again, being in the quote-unquote preparedness business for so many years and trying to help people, I see a slight glimmer of hope because, again, what I'm trying to do when I quote like Luke 16, okay, and everyone should read that, and then they should go to the Lord and say, Lord, show me what this means and how to apply it. You laid out the most perfect, and I say that not in flattery, but just in appreciation, the reasons. Most people don't want the responsibility. Number two, they fail to recognize whose system they're in. I mean, I can tell you this. in heaven, and I'm concerned with heaven. Heaven, the streets aren't lined with Federal Reserve notes, and the presidents of the United States aren't in God's Hall of Fame, probably God's Hall of Shame, especially now. But the point is that what people have got to understand is this. When they talk about what should they do, they should do it now. I had a gentleman from Odessa, Texas, and he really got it. And he said, "You're gonna," and he knows that I'm reading it just like it was. He was asking me what to do. V, you're gonna love this, Doug. I can send it to all you guys to show you. But he said the minute after he sent the email to me, what should he do? He pulls up on Hagman and Hagman, your archives, Doug, and it's V and I talking from the last time. And I thought, I sent him back a real simple email. I said, I think God's trying to get your attention. He said, he's got it. So I want to share something. People have emailed me, and I put it up on my website and sent it out. Bank manager verifies cash withdrawal limits and reduced hours coming to U.S. banks within 60 days, okay? I know the source of this. It's one of the, the most trustworthy men I know and respect. And so I've told people, I can't tell them the 60 days is accurate, but that question presupposes, if you're getting all those emails, Doug, that people aren't applying it. They're maybe catching wind of it. They're beginning to smell a little bit of sulfur, and the sulfur you're smelling is all hell getting ready to break loose in the financial markets. Ben Bernanke would not guarantee that that same kind of a penalty on American savers wouldn't take place. I mean, the question was put to him point blank. So let me read this alert I put up on stevequayle.com, and then I will tell you this. I received a telephone call from a law enforcement official in the Midwest. He said he had talked to somebody who had more clearances than anybody can imagine. The guy was upset with what's coming down, and he told my law enforcement friend, this is going to be really bad. They are going to crash the economy. They are going to tear it down. We are going under martial law. People will not have access to their money. So that's day two. I just got an email from a certain friend of mine who's a pilot, and he's telling me that a two-star general that he met today and wherever he's flying to basically verified every single thing that my friend the pilot talked to him about, and my friend the pilot talked to him about this. Okay, so in the mouth of two or three witnesses, let every word be established. One of the things that I still am amazed at is that people don't understand how black operations work and how deep background thievery works. The minute there is a chance of exposure of those who are behind the curtain, as we stated earlier, they will kill an operation. They will take it down because if it gets leaked out, there's a chance it'll blow back on them. So everybody in the world in clandestine services, they all want an out, they all want a backdoor, they all want an alibi, and they all don't want to be identified. Like the guy who presses a trigger on a drone, he just is, drone operator 5465. But when you find out it was, I'm making this name up, that it was Chris Whitehorse, and he lives at 4245 West Main Street in Dubuque, Iowa. Now the drone pilot has got a personal name and address, and I don't think he's going to be too happy if the people that he blew away with a U.S. drone, if they have relatives and they want revenge. So what I'm saying is when I post this stuff up, I am not trying to scare anyone, and I have never seen such absolute denial of reality. And I want to read this, and then I want you to comment. Gentlemen, I just received a call, this was given to me yesterday, from a highly agitated bank manager who stated that within 60 days, banks will be greatly reducing their hours, their days of operation, the amount of withdrawals, and a requirement to fill out paperwork if the amount is questioned by bank officials. Unless the form is completed, money will not be dispersed. What really irritated this manager is that after hearing our statements on the air, that's mine and his, and receiving years of assurance that our positions and contacts were so much BS, now he hears from corporate people that is apparently true after all. He said, screw them, grab the money while you can. The parameters given were banks open 2 days a week to 4 to 5 hours with below minimum staffs, increased security, and greatly reduced amounts of actual cash in the vault. Amount of withdrawal will be held to between $500 and $2,000 per day per customer account, not per customer account, not customer. So my account could only have either my wife or I withdraw, not both. That level could change at any time. There is no plan, at least known, for automatic confiscation from accounts yet. And he said that the banks hold the ownership, listen to this, that the ownership authority and final disposition of any items found in the safety deposit boxes. Surprise, surprise. Withholding mortgage payments could result in expedited 30-day foreclosures and 50-day sheriff's locks on your door. Now, understand, this person thought that my source and I were just full of you-know-what, okay? And, again, let me share something. We're trying to tell everybody how to avoid the you-know-what that smells like you-know-what, that steps in it and you know that you got on your boot, and when it hits the fan, you know what it is. And everybody's saying, well, I don't see any of this stuff. That's because you're standing in it up to your neck and you won't take a step out of it. That's me. Clearly, the only option is to close accounts or only keep funds that can be paid instantly to keep the electric, water, or other critical accounts paid. Cash will be drying up. So unless people hold precious metals, and he said bullets, the new currency, by the way, the best return on investment has been on ammo and firearms, or medicines, you are screwed. Barter will be king. As the colonel said yesterday, the universe is contracting into the black hole. There is no way to escape its pull. Political, economic, social order black hole. And he said received at 3:45, the 20th of March, 2013. So, again, today I get a call. I get a call from a law officer active, in the Midwest. He says they, just got the word from somebody who's really high up with more clearances. He said, the guy said it's all coming down. Defined. The finance of the banks, the martial law, implementation, going for the guns, and that's it. Now I get a call, I get an email, I probably get a call tomorrow, and I get it from my pilot friend saying he had a 2-star, and 2-star confirmed it all. And he knows what I'm talking about because, he reads my alerts even while he can, between flights and airports and stuff. And so what I'm saying tonight, and then, V, I want you to comment, is that there, all the handwriting's on the wall. I think people expect that somehow there's going to be a new blackboard that, if they get the right man in office or just some miraculous action by somebody is going to, give them all their accounts back. I believe the time to move is now. Am I being melodramatic in your opinion based on what you know and who you know?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I think the biggest, the craziest thing I hear people saying is, we have to get our money out of the bank. Okay. Go get your money out of the bank, and then what? Keep it under your mattress while you go into hyperinflation? The $10,000 you had in a bank account that you pulled out and you decide to pull it and put it into a pillowcase, in a hyperinflationary world, what's that worth to you? You could maybe buy 2 loaves of bread. The point is, it's like, what I was trying to say is this is financial survival. What you want to be is the way you escape as a Christian, like what what Doug said earlier with his question is, how do you escape this? How do you prepare for this? There is only one way for you to escape this, to escape the nexus of the bankers, and that is precious metals. Now, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I'm going to make it very clear to everybody out there. I need everybody to really chime in and pay attention to this. There is a massive confusion between currency and money. Let's just say Steve Quayle had $1,000 in Federal Reserve notes in his pocket right now. Let's just say Doug Hagman had $1,000 worth of gold, in his pocket right now. Now let's just say Joe had $1,000 worth of silver in his pocket right now. Of those 3 gentlemen, who do you think has the real wealth? Of course, it's going to be Doug. It's going to be Joe. Steve's holding worthless paper. Steve has currency. Doug and Joe have money. You see, that's the first thing that Christians need to understand. That what God has put in the earth as precious metals and what humanity has used and is so ingrained in our, for lack of a better word, our DNA to trade, because we've been trading it for so long, for the last 5,000-6,000 years, gold and silver. That's where people need to be. So when you go out and you get a portion of the money out of your bank account while leaving some in there to pay your electric bill, your mortgage bill, your light bill, your car bill, all this other stuff, you take that and you roll it into gold and silver. then people, well, Vij, what happens when the market comes down to, and the gold, it's $1,600 and it goes down to $1,200? You just buy more. What happens if it goes back up? You buy more. You do what you can to accumulate, because the day is coming very soon where you're going to really need that. That's how you escape. People say, well, what about my mortgage? Don't worry about your mortgage, because in a hyperinflationary world that we're heading to, your mortgage is going to be easier to pay off. Number two, you're going to see the resurgence. Arizona today is considering passing a law to make gold and silver legal tender. You're going to see that movement occur in so many states across the country. And there's card combis, those little credit cards that are cut into little gold pieces. That's making a comeback, which allows you to, buy things in small little pieces of gold. These are important things. These are the things that you move your money into, not your 401k, not your IRA, and definitely not the stock market, definitely not bonds. It's just not what you want to do. So in terms of things coming down, no, we're not exaggerating. Me and Steve, we're not on this, in this show right now to be to play Isaac Asimov and let's pretend to be futurists. No, this is reality. And the reality is, it is happening, and it's happening at such an alarming rate that you have to be prepared.
I think, too, it's important to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that the amount of people on food stamps, call it 50 million. That's the true amount. They admit to 48.5, 49. You can't have any growth without jobs. I remember V, Doug, and Joe fighting when NAFTA, North American Free Trade Alliance or whatever, was being proposed, and GATT, General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs, and Ross Perot said that's a great sucking sound, drawing jobs out of the country. Everybody who went to Walmart to buy the cheap goods built up a nation that now buys up everything we have, and with the last savings of the American working class. And by the way, once they go for the IRAs, KIOs, 401ks, it's not that the middle class will be dying. It's not even that the middle class will be experiencing a slow death. It will be an instantaneous execution, because then every hope, every dream, every plan goes up in smoke. So one of the things that has been interesting to me, and since I've been on talk radio for 20 years, people tell me that, that gold and silver, you don't have any faith to buy that. So you tell me that God created just measures. He created the gold of Ophir, which is good. The parable of the 10 talents are talking about gold and silver. Gold and silver is made by God. Federal Reserve notes are made by men. Gold and silver are the only asset when it's owned that isn't someone else's liability, not like paper money. And now we've got poverty up 64% from 2000 to 2011 in the cities. I literally, and my wife saw the email, I literally got offered, and I'm just going to share this with you. It breaks my heart when I hear guys saying, Steve, there are women I used to see as secretaries, they're selling themselves. I literally got an email, and it wasn't a fake email, and again, I show this stuff. I don't have any secrets, okay? And a lady wanted to come, and she wanted to know if my wife would allow her to move in and basically act as a surrogate wife, and everything else that goes along with that. And I rebuked it. I sent an email back, and I tossed it out. But I'm telling you, in the book of Isaiah, it talks about there being so few men that 7 women take hold of one man, saying, be my husband, take away my reproach. Now, what does that have to do with everything? I deal with more women who are brilliant in the financial field, smart, intelligent, than I deal with men. And this isn't, how do I say this delicately? This isn't to uplift them at the expense of the men or to downgrade the men. And for those who are husbands and wives in agreement, this doesn't apply to you. But just as I see it, the women who intuitively move are always ahead of the game. And when I'm talking about the financial game, because they are the nest builders, they are the homemakers. And what is astonishing to me, Listen to this, and this is a statement that Romy just sent me, and she said it really succinctly. She said, Steve, the church pastors, for the most part, have taught their people to stay away from doing what the Lord Jesus told us to do just before he was crucified, and basically told them get their money, swords, and extra cloaks and shoes. The church has lied to pew-warming Christians to not worry about the reality of the devil and what he will do to them, like stealing all their money out of the banks and making sure their kids have their heads on straight and walk intimately with the Lord. I hear people still talking about diamonds falling from the air from heaven and gold dust covering their heads and hands, yet they haven't a clue about the economy. Having no food, no water, no homes, no safe way to take care of their families, etc. Church-going disciples of Jesus need to know what is happening and trust their gut instincts and flee from these people who are false shepherds hiding their million-dollar antique car collections right under their churches' noses. That just took place in Southern California. Found out from the horse's mouth yesterday. And then I'm going to share this, and I'll turn it back over to you, V, really quickly. And Jesus, listen to this, Mark 11:15 through 18. Who was Jesus' number one nemesis? Obviously the devil, but the second, you're going to find out, bankers. And they came to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple and began to cast them out that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations a house of prayer, but ye have made it into a den of thieves? And the scribes and chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because all the people were astonished at his doctrine. In essence, Jesus had to deal with the moneylenders. So when Jesus said the love of money, he said the love of money, not money, is the root of all evil. You said it, V. The greatest distancing from reality and mental, financial, good decision-making is not understanding the difference between an IOU, currency, worthless paper, and real tangibles. You know, when Abraham was blessed of God, it didn't say, and the Lord gave to Abraham a fabulous 401k, a golden parachute composed of Swiss francs, German marks, Japanese yen carry trade IOUs and T-bills, okay? Now, obviously, that's ridiculous, but the Word of God teaches that he made them plenteous in goods. The thing is that we are in a time unlike any other. You know, what does it take? I wish that somebody would do this. And if there's somebody listening to me in Cyprus, I will pay someone to go. You got to have them speak English, but I will pay for a half a dozen interviews for you to go and they have to speak English and tell. I want you to get them on camera, a minute or two, to get the voices of the people. We just hear Cyprus. Those are people. Those are human beings. Time and time again, it infuriates me at the how should I say this, the clandestine, sterile environment of people's lives being just blown away, them either blowing up, their lives blown away, their futures taken away, their hopes taken away. And I can tell you this, that this is what America's facing. And I mean, look at Detroit and ask me or tell me, is that just one city, or is that what would you say, a picture of a lot of cities, failing infrastructures, everything going on. And then you look at China and you look at some of the Chinese cities and the architecture in China, or you go to Singapore or Hong Kong, and you see that the money has moved from the west to the east. And guess what? America's especially in Christians don't even just let the bankers steal it. They let the piranhas in the pulpits pick their pockets with a super vac, and everything goes out. So again, answer, and I don't say this, answer that, V, in a nice way, because I have to turn it over to you or I'm going to get hot, okay? So I'm turning it over to you. Even a fool's considered wise when he holds his peace. So I deflect to you now on that, because you laid it out. Currency is different than commodity.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the biggest thing is you have to learn how to escape the nexus. Okay, you once you figure out how the system works, okay, you don't have to know collateralized debt obligations. You don't have to know credit default swaps. You don't have to know what a derivative is. You don't have to know any of those things. Okay, you don't have to know what a subprime mortgage is. You don't have to know what a mortgage-backed security is. You don't have to know any of that. But if I could simply educate you where you can know that, hey, if it's paper, it's not worth the paper that it's printed on. And the only real the only real measure of tangible wealth is gold and silver, then then you're on the pathway to success right there. You're on the pathway to free yourself from the system. Then you can begin to, start looking at how you can really build wealth. I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine whose father, back in the 60s, bought for about $25 a piece South African Kruger guards, solid gold South African Kruger guards. Today, those pieces of gold coins that he's holding for $25 a pop, he bought I don't even know how many coins, but when I evaluated it, he's sitting on over $500,000. I mean, think about it. That's real wealth that this man's grandfather passed on to his family. And you hear the terminology storing of wealth. People don't understand that. Why? Because we think short term. When we're talking about storing wealth, think about a way. You tell me what fund you can possibly have where you can put money away and it's guaranteed wealth, not only for you, and not only for your children, but also for your children's children. That's what precious metals provide. The elite of the world, they are always purchasing gold and silver. Do you think they care about spot price at this juncture? No. They use they'll increase the price to get to make it very difficult for people to purchase. They'll increase margin requirements 3-4 times in a week, just so that you don't buy. Then they'll crash the price so that it'll scare you, so you can give up whatever position you hold on it. Why? So they can buy more. The elite understand that real wealth is in metals. It's in gold and silver. That's real hard money right there. The paper is what they've created for all of us to play around with. The paper is what they created for us to kill ourselves with, to kill each other, to defraud one another, to harm one another. That's what they've done. And that's one thing that, people have to free themselves. Their mindset has to change. You have to set yourself up properly and understand what's coming down. Things that are occurring in Europe will spill over. Cyprus is just a little microcosm of a much larger picture. And believe me when I say that you are part of that picture. Your life will be affected. It's inevitable. It's not a question of if. It's just simply when.
Well, Doug, are we to the point we need to take a break before I step in? Because, I think what I've got a couple of questions that the listeners are asking V, and one of them, V, will take your breath away at how should I say, illustrative it is of, and I'm not picking on this person, but how they don't get it. Someone's going to ask, and we'll come back after the break, but about the real estate rental income versus precious metals because they don't generate cash flows.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. So, listen, we'll be right back after the break. And, Doug, God bless you. Thank you for Joe and you guys doing what you do because tonight's critical. What we're trying to do is give people a hope for the future as opposed to having them raped, pillaged, and plundered. So that's where we're coming from tonight.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 3 of the Hagman and Hagman Report this Friday, March 22nd, 2013. We are joined tonight by 2 very special guests, Steve Quayle, stevequayle.com, and Financial Insider V, who has been generous enough to come on with us once before and share information. I suggest that everybody go back and listen to the January 11th episode where a lot of information was given that ended up becoming news headlines.
That is one of the most powerful broadcasts in our archive that has been downloaded more across platforms more than 1 million times, that January 11th, 2013 episode. So, folks, definitely. And if you compare it to what is being said tonight, you can yourself verify the fact that what's taking place. What this gentleman has said on January 11th, in fact, is it has come to pass, and we're witnessing it come to pass right now. So, gentlemen, welcome back. Steve, are you there?
Well, yeah, I want to, and this is a great question because, again, now I want the lady that sent this to me to understand I'm not making fun of you, but this is the greatest example of an absolute disconnect in understanding the difference between rental income and precious metals. Hi, I'm listening to V on H&H's radio show right now. Could you please ask him if it's a good idea to invest in U.S. real estate market for rental income since investing in precious metals does not generate cash flow? Take that one on, my brother.
Wow. Where do I begin?
Yeah.
Okay. First and foremost, okay, real estate investment is a myth. Okay? Real estate as being a great investment is insane. You tell me an investment where let's take your average home. Okay, you buy a $200,000 mortgage. By the time you paid interest on it, by the time you paid it off in 30 years, that $200,000 home is darn near $700,000. I mean, what type of investment are you getting out of it? Okay, now in rental, okay, let's talk about rental. I would like for that person, I have a whole litany of people that were crying. Why? Because they had massive rental properties all over Florida. Okay, I'm talking about Miami. I'm talking about South Beach. I mean, top-notch rental properties. Those rental properties right now, the mortgage that this gentleman had on it, and he's one of my Turkish investor friends, those real estate, and I told the guy, listen, you need to sell that and get at it. Nope. Wanted to hold on to it because, you know what, he wanted to be like a Donald Trump, who has a horrible financial track record, by the way. So he decides to hold on to it. Sure enough, all his properties are underwater right now. What do you do when you're holding rental property where the value of it is far less than the mortgage you own on it, number one? What do you do when you're in a depressed economy where you can't even qualify most people to even rent from you, number one?
Good point.
Number two, how are you going to guarantee that, hey, you know what, you're going to sign a 1-year lease at $1,500 a month rental? How are you going to guarantee that payment and all of a sudden you go into a financial dip? The property and the surrounding properties and the surrounding demographics get hit severely hard economically. And now this gentleman, that your tenant who's renting from you $1,500 a pop, is now in a hyperinflationary environment where everything's around you is collapsing. Why would you want to stay there? Or let's just say that the real estate market hits another dive, which it will, which I predict it's going to happen, and property values fall even further. Why would he want to stay with you and rent for $1,500 when he can go down the street and somebody's renting for $800? So the question becomes, where do you draw the line? Can you, as a real estate investor, draw the line for me? Can you guarantee for me that, hey, you're paying $1,500 a month in rent this year, the next year is going to be the same? Or in 6 months? Or in 3 months it's going to be the same market? You can't. And number two, if you're holding real estate, guess what? Guess who one of the guys I respect, and I love him dearly, is Peter Schiff. He's a great guy. Peter rents a home. Okay? Most guys who do what Peter does and who are in my kind of a background, we rent. Or if we do buy, we buy and we keep. Okay, because you know what? We just want to hold on to it for a while. We don't, in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is we do not see real estate as an investment. So why do you see it as an investment? Think about that. We don't see it as an investment. It's a risk. Now, if you're a property owner and I'm renting from you, or let's say Peter, perhaps living in Connecticut, he rents a beautiful house. Okay, he rents it from his landlord. Who gets the benefits of that situation? The renter does, because he gets to have a nice house or a place to live. He gets all the benefits of ownership with another risk. What do you mean by that? Well, if the water heater goes out, guess who's fixing it? You are. If the roof needs replacing, guess who's fixing it? You are. The driveway needs repaving. Guess who's fixing it? You are. In other words, you're spending an inordinate amount of time in repairs and upkeep. That's why most houses are called a money pit. It is a constant fix. So again, my question to all the Robert Kiyosaki fans is, why is real estate a good investment? It's not. It's a good investment only when there's a bubble to back up that investment. Okay? You have a real estate bubble to back up this real estate market, then it's a great investment. Why? Because everybody's making money on the up and up. But in the type of environment that you are in now, the only is, well, what about cash flow? How do you generate cash flow? Well, certainly not from, if you want to hold on to some real estate and temporarily, get some cash flow out of it for the time being, yeah, that's fine. But understand that when the collapse occurs, when this, when the contagion comes coming down the pike, you're going to be left holding the bag. Are you prepared to take that kind of a hit? Are you prepared to expose yourself that much? Are you ready for that type of exposure? Those are questions you got to ask. And cash flow, I don't know. Get a second job. Find a skill. Sell something. Figure out how to find out what skills you're good at, and find a way to marketing. And that's a good way to develop cash flow. But in terms of real estate as an investment at this point in the game, absolutely.
Let me deal with another question, because it came up in 2 emails, and this is something where an incredible disconnect is out there. And since I've been at this for 35 years, I want to answer a question. Steve, I would agree with what you guys are saying about owning precious metals, but can you also explain why those who own precious metals sell them for dollars? Well, number one, as a dealer, I don't sell my own gold and silver. I buy gold and silver from the mints, from the mines, and obviously charge a small percentage. I am a dealer, okay? I'm not a broker. I don't sell paper assets. I sell them physical. Shouldn't the very big owners of PMs also be aware of the direness of the situation and start saying, we are not selling our PMs for any amount of money? That's exactly what China's doing. China is taking all of the trillions of dollars earned by their manufacturing of slave labor products in the United States, and they're buying physical commodities. They're buying gold mines. They're buying silver mines. They're buying strategic metals holdings. They're buying water rights. They're buying farmland. They're buying gas deposits, oil deposits. So the disconnect is that, look, when I sell an ounce of gold or 100 ounces of gold or an ounce of silver or 100 ounces, that's not my silver gold. I have business relationships. That's why I can tell people what's going on. And the parable of the 10 talents, the guys that the people that always want to argue with this, I find, number one, the 2 things that come up more than anything is, like, people tell me, and typically they're broke, okay, and even some of the people have been honest and said they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they invested in real estate, or they invested in this, or they basically believe their broker, and I said, that's the problem. You believe a broker, you're going to end up that way. Believe a dealer, you get a deal. And even somebody who plays the odds in Vegas, I'm not a gambler nor Atlantic City, but at least they're called dealers, not brokers. And I'm not trying to be funny. Let me give you a good example. The Valcambi credit card sized gold bars, okay? They first came out in Europe, and they absolutely went crazy. They're a 50-gram bar. Imagine a credit card with 50 little individual gram bars, all stamped 999 fine gold, 4 nines. It's pure gold. The Thais, meaning from Thailand, used to have bot chains, which could break off a specific part of the chain and basically use that to buy your whatever food or escape out of Southeast Asia during the height of Vietnam, and when everybody was looking for an e-ticket or a way of an escape. I put that up on my website the other day, V, and just to let everyone know, probably with the 2 biggest dealers in the country only got 400 of those bars totally, because Americans still don't think that way. So what I'm telling people, number one, is that, look, you're going to invest in something. Investing in nothing is still an investing in something, and that something happens to be nothing. Good example, putting money in a bank for less than 1%, and now being told, even in the American banking circles, that you may be charged a negative interest rate for the purpose of storing your bloody money. Let me tell you what that translates out into. That translates out into you're too blank dumb to take responsibility for your own investments, and we'll take it, the responsibility. We'll use it to make ourselves all kinds of money, and we'll charge you a negative interest rate to do it. That's the bottom line. So if anybody would like to contact me, and listen, my calling in Joseph's ministry is to get people prepared. It didn't matter when people could buy food at 50% less than they can get it now, or even 100% less than they get it now. They said, "You're selling fear to sell food. You're selling fear." No, the fear is out there. The fear is your response to the events taking place in the world, and you're not prepared. And so you know, Todd, the people that are out there that are hearing, when you get someone like V on with the experience he has behind the scenes and has been right on and absolutely has told you what's going to happen. He's telling you the same thing I'm telling you, that my friend Lloyd, one of the most famous commodities brokers in the world, God bless you, Lloyd, is basically written up, and he said, Steve, the bottom line is people are missing the biggest point in all this. If they don't get access to what they have, this is from a guy that made $1 million in one day trading for a certain famous financier that gets accused of currency manipulation. $1 million in one day he made, and he said, tell the people it isn't about arguments anymore. It's about survival. That's what V is saying. That's what I'm saying. So if you want me to contact you over the weekend, just send me an email, stevequayle777@yahoo.com, and put gold bars or metals, and I'll call you back. Give me your phone number. And again, V, I'm concerned because, you know, every time I turn around, and then I'm going to give back to you, every time I turn around to get more and more information coming from people that are high enough up in the world to be considered heroes. And I'm not talking about the world of Lucifer. I'm talking about people, men and women, who love their country, serve their country, highest security clearances in the world that people don't even know exist, absolutely brokenhearted. And when they tell me it's over, man, I feel like an optimist. So what we're doing is, and this is something that is so infuriating, and I'm sorry, those of you who are intercessors, you can pray for me. The fury is over this, that the slaughter, and I went into great detail on Tuesday, the slaughter that's coming. And so if Jesus tells about the parables of the 10 talents, and talent is gold and silver, 10 talents, I think I said on the radio, was $9.4 million, then that means that God's willing to trust you with great stuff, but it's to help other people. And to not be in a position to help, I hate it. I hate being in a position when someone has a need and I can't meet that need somehow, either in prayer or physically. I'm in the world of physical. I don't believe in just saying, thank you, Lord. I believe in showing, Lord, Jesus, I love you, and because I love you, I'm going to take care of this guy, or this person, and I don't care what my critics say. And interestingly enough, V, the point is that when someone's broke, they cannot help anyone unless the Lord gives them seed to multiply. What we're trying to do is keep the people that may have some seed left in the game, and the Luciferians are taking them all out of the game. Is that an understatement, or am I overstating it?
No, there's definitely no understatement. The only thing is, could you repeat that question that gentleman had? I just got sidetracked for a bit. I'm just trying to formulate my thoughts.
The thing that, I'm sorry, the question he was asking that I was responding to, first of all, was why would dealers and our rich guys be selling their gold and silver for dollars? And I'm saying, and I went into the explanation, China is using all their dollars to buy the stuff. And I made the statement that dealers like myself don't sell our gold and silver. We sell silver and gold that's on the market. When there is no more silver and gold that's on the market to sell, guess what? I don't sell gold and silver anymore.
Oh, it's a real simple answer, and this is the answer. And if that guy's listening in, I'll tell him this. Look, there are people, okay, we make money, and they make money on when the market's going up and when the market's going down. People sell their gold for dollars. Why? So they can buy more gold for dollars. Because right now, you have to understand that anything that is, that is sold is quickly being bought up. All right? It is bought for the intent purpose that right now is a buyer's market. Any sales that are going on is simply getting the weak hands out of the game. So that's when you see a price dip on gold or a price dip on silver. It's just to get the weak hands out of the game. So once those hands are out of the game, it's going to be bought very quickly. See, precious metals, okay, purchasing gold, I mean, it's getting very hard to get gold and silver these days. It's becoming very difficult for a lot of dealers to get even junk bags of silver. It's getting hard and very difficult for dealers to promise delivery in a timely manner of their precious metals. This is the environment this is reality. Okay, so when you hear about people, why did this guy selling? Oh, he just sold a couple of positions in gold. Yeah, it's a temporary position. That's just to buy more of the stuff later. That's what this whole game is about. It's either he's prepping up to buy more gold and silver later, or some guy who is a weak hand decided to dump. But I'm telling you, amongst the elites, nobody's selling. They're all holding tight. They're all playing their cards very close to the chest.
Oh, I hope.
Steve,
go ahead.
Steve, let me ask you this question because this is pertinent to what we're talking about right this moment. I got a question from a gentleman outside of Edwards Air Force Base in Lancaster, California, asking me this. He was on your website. He understands that you do sell gold and silver, commodity, precious metals. Do you keep records? In other words, he fears, I'm reading into this now, of maybe the government confiscating your records, finding out that he maybe purchased silver or gold from you. Do you keep customer records to the extent where the government could get their hands on them? Is that a fair question to ask?
Let me say this. At this point, obviously, under subpoena, any records have to be had, but also understand that, there's a gold dealer or all dealers have to fill out a Form 8300 if someone comes in with greenbacks. That's greenbacks meaning cash money, currency over $10,000. But there's no reporting requirements for any amount of orders or any amount of dollars, if it's a check. Obviously, listen, FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, monitors every transaction of every bank, and you're friends with the guys that developed the software. So to make a statement that if a country as far away as Angola deposits money in Timbuktu, then it goes to Zurich, and then it goes through Istanbul, then comes the United States, man, they track it all the way. But as far as mandatory reporting requirements, at this point, there is none that are required. Does that answer the question, Doug? Now,
absolutely.
In essence, so and here's the other thing. The time of the freedom to buy metals, and I think V and I have talked about this before, is ending. And see, this is the argument. It's almost like circular logic. Well, the government may confiscate the gold and silver, and I tell people they're going to confiscate your life. That's what you need to understand. So your gold and silver should be part of your protection plan. And the two B's, B and B, for gold and silver is barter and bribe. Someone says, you can't tell somebody to bribe somebody. Oh, yes, I can. Because somebody said, well, that's not the right way. Hey, I got news for you. David feigned insanity. People ran for their lives, including the prophet Elijah. So, that's why Jesus said the children of this world are wiser in dealing with one another than children of light. I read it in Luke 16 tonight. I want everybody who is upset at whenever we talk about this, and I'll tell you what it comes down to. It comes down to jealousy and envy, and and I got to share this with you. I thought I was missing the Lord, and within 24 hours, 3 different people, unknown to me, said they were praying for me, Steve, and the Lord told me to tell you to rebuke the spirit of jealousy and envy. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that's what you're dealing with in the parable of the 10 talents. The guy that got rebuked, he was jealous of the success of the guys that doubled, and he was too afraid to step out and do anything. Fear is on your part. We are giving you solutions. We are giving you answers. And we're telling you, first and foremost, number one, don't go buy a rental property. I told a friend of mine, I love him dearly, but I said, look, you can't rent a house if everyone's broke. And B said a powerful statement. Pastor Langford has a friend that is a giant property manager. And I think David told me 9 out of 10 people have such poor credit now they can't even rent a house, even if they can come up with the first and last month's rent. I mean, I think his friends, wouldn't listen to David. By the way, I've known David for a lot of years, and David has warned this guy for 20 years that this day was coming, and the guy wouldn't listen. And now he's sitting on, I believe at one point, he managed maybe close to 1,000 units of, rental property. That's big money on a monthly basis. But now the bottom line is there is no credit-qualified tenant, and that's the key in all of this. And so what we're trying to say tonight is, look, skip all the terms, all the collateralized debt obligations and MBSs, mortgage-backed securities, or what I used to call that as mortgage bull, you-know-what. But the point is that the house of cards is getting an F5 tornado warning, and everybody's saying, well, are you holding diamonds or are you holding clubs, my brother? And I'm saying, don't you guys understand there's an F5 storm, and it's no longer on the radar screen, man. It's taking out houses in its way. And this metaphor is taking out countries. And there's a statement, V, you've heard it. Von Clausewitz said, when goods don't cross borders, armies do. That's the same thing in currency wars. When currency can no longer trade fair and on an equal basis of value, that's when armies start blowing the hell out of the planet. And we're getting set to have this place turned into the craters of the moon all over the United States and all over different parts of the world because, in essence, when you can't fix it, you blow the hell out of it.
Absolutely correct. One of the things that I will tell you is this: most people that are, quote unquote, call themselves Christian, especially in this country, they hear the things, they hear the storm warnings, they could see the clouds forming. They kind of deny. They say, you know what, it's not going to happen. You're just a fear monger. This, that, and the other. We've all heard it. And I think if you look at the point of why modern-day Christendom talks about this is this. Fearmonger, when the...
Are you there?
V. Did we...
Are you there, V?
Lose V. All right, it says he's still on there. Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Are we on?
Okay. All right, he just dropped. We'll bring him back on as soon as he does.
Yeah, it sounds like he might have lost his cell connection, Steve. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the thing that what we're both trying to do is put everyone around the world that's listening to this into a reality framework. It's no longer happening over there. I just want to refer everyone, go to my website, stevequayle.com, and go and see what Judge Andrew Napolitano is saying. Go and see what Ben Bernanke is saying when he was asked specifically, would there be any guarantees at the American depositor? And by the way, Doug, that $250,000 or $100,000 FDIC insurance, just look at how much the FDIC insurance can cover, and then you need to understand they have up to 100 years, I think, in the fine print to make good on an account. So here's the thing. Guerilla financing. I know Hawk and I talked a few minutes before, went on the air, and he made it plain. This, ladies and gentlemen, is flat out a microcosm of a preparatory time phase for guerrilla warfare. So I'm applying it in the financial sense. If everybody out there is trying to pick your pocket until they can pick your bones and then sell what's left of your carcass into some kind of food manufacturing, international globalist Soylent green, blue, or red factory, then you should probably know that roadblock after roadblock after roadblock is trying to be put in your way before you go over the cliff. Oh, let's use the word fiscal cliff. The most neurolinguistically programmed used term, I think, in the last 10 years that has ever been fronted, going from 90,000 usages the first week to, I think, 9.8 or something billion entries on Google, or maybe it's 980 million in a matter of weeks. that word fiscal cliff, fiscal cliff, fiscal cliff, fiscal cliff. What you're being programmed is to accept failure. You're being told it's no use. It's being told you're no good. Who do you think's behind those accusations? The accuser of the brethren. So in what we're trying to do tonight is to give you, again, time to consider. And as I've always said, Doug, and you've known me for a long time, and anybody who's listened to me from the start 20 years ago, I said, take it to the Lord in prayer. Go and read the parable of the 10 talents. Go and read Luke 16, and then pray over it. So people say, well, I don't know how to pray. I said, easy. Just go quote the scripture out loud and say simply, God, help me to understand what you're saying to me and help me to apply it to my own life. You know, because someone's broke, and I don't mean this with harm. If I had my way and I had the ability, and God knows I'm serious about this, I would write checks to everyone who sent me a need in a given day. I've told you, Doug, I couldn't come up with enough money writing $10,000 of checks a day to cover the needs that are presented to me. And the sorrow and the brokenness, the broken bodies, or the vets, the 950,000 vets, you know, that are still waiting, or the 250,000 vets, and now they're being, you know, hey, isn't it an easy way? If you think of the cost of 1 million guys and let's say $1,000 a person, that's $1 billion. It's simple. You don't have to pay up if you kill them all off. Someone says, oh, that's so harsh, and we're not doing that. Get a life, grow the hell up, and get real. You know, seriously, we are seeing the destruction of complete classes of people, i.e. the working class, i.e. the middle class, i.e. the retired military class, and now we're being told through sequestration that 900,000 employees are going to be lost who are directly related to the federal government's programs. Well, guess what? I don't think that's 900,000 happy campers. So the situation is that the nation is coming apart at the seams. And the people that, and I'll use the word complain because it's more politically correct, and whine, that's really accurate, are the ones who have done absolutely nothing. And they better shut up, because if they don't shut up, their own lack of inaction, their scorn and ridicules of others will blow back on them like a flamethrower that backflashes. I'm telling you, this is a late time in the game. B, are you back on?
Steve, I don't think
he is not back on. No,
not yet. But you know what, Steve? I got a question for you, and I've got several heartbreaking. I have several heartbreaking emails like this, and I'm just going to refer to Linda in Omaha, who writes basically this: we are 72 years old and 76 years old. Only income and Social Security about $1,500 a month. They're not even. I mean, they're barely getting by. Okay, they don't go out. They don't do anything. Bottom line is this: there are homeowners. They had medical expenses. They could probably walk away from their house or sell the house and make about $10,000 on the sale of the house. Linda writes, I think we should sell everything that we don't use on a daily basis. Sell the house and buy gold and silver with the proceeds. You know, we could live with family until we find an expensive little house in a small town nearby. We are told that if the globalists win, they will foreclose on every mortgage, and if we wait, we'll have lost everything that's of value. So she's looking for just confirmation, as many people are. You know, I mean, just from your gut, Stephen. And I know the answer to this question, but how would you respond to Linda?
Well, here's what I'm hoping, Doug, and I do have an answer for it. I don't have a specific answer, but I have a general answer. I am praying, and I mean this, for God to so place on people's hearts He's blessed the need. And I've always said this, so this isn't, you know, Johnny come lately or Steve trying to come up with a cornball answer. But I am so convinced that when we begin to care about other people, you know, and really love indeed, and again, like I said, I don't have enough money, nor can I make enough money to write checks for $10,000 a day. Okay, I just can't do it. But the times I have $1,000, or Cornelius II has $2,000, or JD, or whoever the people that have been such a blessing, and James P. These are people who care for others to a degree that's unheard of. I mean, you know, I got to tell you something. What does it say about a person's character when they buy $100,000 worth of food and ship it to the three biggest, if you will, soup kitchens on the West Coast? You know, one in the one in California, and one in Las Vegas, and one I think in Reno. Well, it says they got a heart as big as God's desire to bless. And one of the problems is how do you think? I mean, seriously, if forget not the benefits of the Lord is the one that gives wisdom. If Christians allow themselves to be fleeced, okay? And this is a direct answer to these people. I'm praying that God will bring someone across their path that can make up the difference. I know of a church, I won't use the pastor's name, but man, this guy and his wife are on board. Their congregation is praying, interceding for 4 hours. These guys are seeing miracles of God, and he's a rarity. God bless you, Bruce. The bottom line is that there are people that are actually seeing the miraculous provision. Now, that's the sad part. Even God's heart is broken, and the Bible speaks of it. How do you know God's heart? It's simple. I pay attention to what he says in his word and pay attention to what he says with his mouth. And the shepherds who have shorn the sheep, okay, are going to have their comeuppance. And when I say that, comeuppance, the Bible says that judgment begins at the house of God. And I am with King David. I'm not King David. I wish I was, less a few instances in his life. I don't need a Bathsheba, and I certainly don't need, to number the people of God. But the point being is that David, when he saw the need of the people, took what was in the storehouses and gave it to the people. So what I'm saying is this: if God's people won't follow his principles of how to be faithful in the unrighteous mammon, then don't blame God if you're listening to the devil because you're poor. And I'm talking about the people that are living on fixed incomes. It is my desire that the people who are in that position are helped. The Bible says, he who gives unto the poor lends unto the Lord, and the Lord will repay. Even Jesus said, the poor you have always. I don't like that. I wish there was no one poor. I guess that's one of the questions I have to get answered from the Lord, and he'll give me an answer. But, Lord, why are there poor people? And I understand greed. I understand manipulation. I understand the devil. I understand all this stuff. But, Lord, why? Why? And so my goal is to teach people to go to the Savior. Jesus said this. He's not seen the right, or David said, let's see, what was it? I once was young and now I'm old, but I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. So the righteous have an inheritance in the Lord. If God will send manna from heaven, look, I'm not an idealist. I'm an irritating pragmatist even to myself, okay? I'm so pragmatic. I don't like sometimes, I ask the Lord to help me, but the thing is that God's word will ultimately be our source of solo provision. Because I've said this, people worried about mortgages said that's the least the thing I'm worried about. And by the way, I have a big mortgage. Bottom line is, I know I'm going in the wilderness. I know that God is going to lead his people in the wilderness. When? Now, in the wilderness, I'm not talking about everybody's going to be sitting around a campfire like, they're showing on the movies, the Vikings or whatever, but they're going to be led to a place of God's provision versus their own provision. Now, there are people that are probably set in their place and will be, and people who can't move or health problems. I know people that are quadriplegics that are listening to this show. God bless you, Ken. God bless you, Glenn. I know people that are blind listening to this show, and I'm telling you this, is that if the Word of God is true as it is true, especially in the book of Genesis going to the first chapters of Exodus, when the children of Israel left Egypt, there went not one feeble out amongst them. And we've done something, Doug, on your show that's unique in talk radio. In essence, we've been able, by the grace of God, and I thank you guys, Joe and Doug, for making this platform available to me and others, but we've been able to call the body of Christ together on a worldwide basis to pray for specific needs. And there are so many needs, and there are so many impossibilities, and there are so many improbabilities, and all those things. But at the end of all, even at the end of this broadcast, I will pray, and I will say, Lord, thank you for being jealous over your word to perform it and bringing to pass that which you've desired to come to pass tonight. So that's exactly, can I say something too? People ask me about retirement. I said, forget it. The word doesn't exist any longer. Retirement is when you lay down and go home to be with Jesus.
We have V back with us.
Sorry, guys. I don't realize where I dropped off. So what was the last thing I said before I was gone?
I'm not sure, V. It doesn't matter. We can just pick up anew here. How's that sound?
That sounds fair.
Yeah, and Steve's been such a Steve filled in a lot of gaps. I have a question from I think it's Montreux from near Provo, Utah, and this is a kind of a good question here. I think V, this is directed to you, and you can answer this. From that Black Swan event, from that moment that everything does collapse here in the United States, what's your either educated guess or suspicion as to when a new currency would be in place, a new global currency? I mean, from the the drop dead point for the dollar to a new economic or a new global currency. Months, days, weeks, years, what?
It's definitely not years. I think it could happen within months. It could happen where things could. I mean, when you look at the world of trade and finance, you're talking about things that are happening in milliseconds. It happens very quickly, and I could picture them having. They're not gonna come out of the curtain and say, hey, you know what, here's a new currency for you. No. What they're going to do is once they collapse everything, they're going to go ahead and say, hey, you know what, the plan is, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, these currencies are no longer effective. What we're going to instate is an SDR, which will be a special drawing rights-based currency. Some people call it the band core. I mean, there's a bunch of floating ideas about that. Nothing's solid, but the concept is what's constant. And that concept is this, that they're going to have a basket of currencies, and it's going to be pegged to this supranational currency. And then you'll be able to borrow according to the measure of that nation's GDP. Okay, if the country has an $11 trillion year GDP, it'll have special drawing rights, a percentage of what it's going to draw from, that basket of currencies versus a country that only has a $1 trillion, economy. But that infrastructure, I want to let everybody know that infrastructure right now is already in place. The only thing that's missing is nomenclature, is giving it a name, okay, in terms of what this new, digital currency is going to be like, all right? So when they do take it away, the first step, you'll still have the dollar, but it'll be based on this SDR thing. You'll still have your Federal Reserve notes, and is what I'm saying. So when the rollout is going to happen, well, I say it's a couple of months. It could be, or it could be within the year or so. Maybe before 2013's out, maybe going into 2014. But it's going to be in your lifetime. I promise you that, and you are going to live to see it. And I promise you that I don't see this thing going past the next 2 to 3 years maximum. I really don't. And I think within, a couple of cohorts and a few sources have said any day now. So it can happen any day now. And they say any day now. That what they're saying is the event that could trigger all of this. It happen.
Hey, V, what about Bitcoin? I have one. Hey, Doug, it's fascinating. The guy that wanted to know our sources, and you saw my response to him, and yours was much more gracious and more measured. But he sends me an email wanting to know about Bitcoin. Would you want to address Bitcoin, V?
Absolutely. The way I would address Bitcoin is this, okay? It's a digital currency. It's online-based. It's, a competitive user currency. I call it the Linux, okay, the Linux currency of the modern world. And
I love that.
If anybody knows about Linux, it's just basically a bunch of privateering, freewheeling, software guys that don't want to ascribe to either Windows or Macintosh. But that's what Bitcoin basically is. So here's the funny thing about Bitcoin: it's completely technology based. It's completely internet based. Okay, guess who controls the internet? Guess who has the infrastructure controls? Okay, now picture Bitcoin, right? Picture if all of us were on the Titanic, all right? And a few of us understand that, hey, man, this ship is going to hit an iceberg, and it's going to hit an iceberg real soon. And a couple of these so-called smart guys decide, hey, we're going to figure out a way to escape. We're going to go into the engine hull, okay, and we're going to construct a miniature replica of the Titanic. And we're all going to jump on it and hold on to it. And so when the iceberg hits, we're going to be fine. That sounds stupid and insane, but that's exactly what the people of Bitcoin are doing. Is they're building a financial system based on the infrastructure that they don't control. So if you don't control that infrastructure, how can you promise any sort of security? How can you promise any sort of stability? You can't. You can't guarantee it because it's not your infrastructure. You're building that on someone else's. Who? Well, the very people who control the internet. So it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. So instead of wasting people's time with Bitcoin, you're better off buying bullion. You're better off buying gold and silver.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing, One guy said the mass majority, this is some guy named Paul, mass majority of people are SOL. I won't define that. The point is he's saying that to try and give people that haven't done anything, even any hope, is just rubbing salt in an open wound. And I just basically told him that, and I did return his email, and I just mean this honestly, the guy is already a member of the Borg, okay? Remember this, in Star Trek, which is science fiction, the assimilation of individuals into a single, if you will, mind, a global mind is what's going on right now. And that's why when you have the puppets, and when you have John Maynard Keynes, Keynesian economics, and all modern schools of economy, with the exception of the Austrian School of Economics, teaching BS, crapo economics, and we're in the mess we're in because of BS crapo economics, that obviously the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So, the disconnect, trust me, I would say this, I'm doing a quick study of my email right now. I'd say it appears that 50% of the people listening get it, and 50% still don't. They still think that the normal business model, for instance, in rental property, is still a wise thing. Now, obviously, if you're in downtown Moscow and everybody's a billionaire, and more billionaires in Moscow now than any other city in the world, and you want to raise your rent to, $10,000 US a day, and there are people willing to pay it, well, that's a good rental market until they run out of money. But what I don't think people understand is the system is working against them, and we're talking about the cyber attack. And would you address that? Because you got friends in that world, and don't get them in trouble. But you were the first guy to come on and tell the level of the cyber attacks going on, and then we heard the horse manure and the hyenas and the jackals saying it couldn't possibly be that much. Why? Because your brain is, and I'm serious. Look, sometimes it's almost like you've got to use shock therapy to get the point across, because I don't think people understand, my bank was down all week. What do you think? Change banks. Don't ask me what I think. Would you address that? Because it's ongoing. It's Chase one day, Citi the next, B of A. It's ongoing, and it's ongoing in the three biggest basket case banks. Will you address that whole issue? Because I think there's one of the, if you want to talk about the Goliath of, let's say, I love this word, towering indifference, that's it, brother. They still think that, I guess it's just a normal glitch. Address the normal glitch, would you, from your inside sources?
Yeah, look, the normal glitch with most of these banks that are their online services are down, their ATM services are down. People waking up one day and all of a sudden their bank account reads zero, and then they have to restore that a couple hours later. That's not normal. That's not normal operating procedures. Some people, it's maybe some infrastructure issues. No, there's no infrastructure issues. What is occurring is there's a move that is a cohesive move done by central banks as well as intelligence networks in order to take down the banking system. It's part of the whole grand scheme of things. Now, in terms of these bank hacks, you just can't simply the last hack that occurred was a couple of months ago, Steve. I'm trying to recollect as much as I can. it was over 200 banks. And, the media said it was about, how much did they say? Like 200 million that was taken, but in reality it was over a couple of billion, like $2.5 billion.
Yeah, remember it jumped up. It went from 10 million to 50 to 100 to 200, and then the truth was out, and you told the truth that, hey, my sources, you said it's in the billions. And even on the last, if you remember, V, on the last time we spoke, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or whatever, on the nature of just how much was really being cyber siphoned off of the big banks and the ones that are being blackmailed, cyber blackmailing, and then you hear all of the new defense postures coming out of Cyber Command and everything. Hello, do you think they would be doing that if V and I were just sitting around, reminiscing? Nah, they're doing that because it's really happening. So the point is that here's the point. The susceptibility to EMP, electromagnetic pulse, to a consorted or a directed cyber attack. North Korea just whacked South Korea and took on Japan, okay? Now, hello, Japanese carry trade, hello, better wake up on this one. Korea, isn't it interesting that two nations that are being hit are the two largest producers of foreign cars, Japan and Korea? And I think you kind of, and a lot of defense technology stuff comes out of there. And so the point being is that we're just trying to give people, can I tell you something? Unreality will not acknowledge the truth any more than unbelief will speak a confession of faith. Amen.
There you go. No, that's exactly what it is. So with these hacks, it's not business as usual. It's not normal operating procedures. This is a serious issue. And, what's happening in South Korea with their banking systems, what's happening all throughout Europe, all throughout China, all throughout the U.S., all throughout Canada, South America. If you were to look at a global map on where these glitches were occurring within the networks, it's all over. It's worldwide. You have to ask yourself a question, why? If it's a glitch, quote unquote, you can, number one, trace the glitch. And if you trace the glitch, it will be isolated to a particular sector, to a particular network. Now, I've worked on some of these networks. I know what the outlay is because I've dealt in electronic funds. And let me tell you, we can isolate it to a specific network. Oh, it will be an IDEN, or it would be like a Cisco network. It will be a NICE network. It's isolated to this type of ATM. It's isolated to that type of server. But what you're seeing is all the networks, the Ciscos, the NICE, the Discovers, all of them are hit, okay? It's the Novus networks are hit. All of it is attacked. All of it is glitched. That's not, do you understand, do people understand the level of technology, the level of sheer processing ability in order to create that much havoc in that many different types of networks at once? This is not normal. That's pretty serious stuff. So that's a warning sign right there.
And what amazes me is just.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
No. I was just going to say, V, remember what your friend told you. He said only a couple people in the world can do effectively what's being done, and that's the backdoor people.
Right, absolutely.
In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the intelligence agencies of the world have backdoors into everything. And if they can steal, and we're talking, the intelligence business is really a misnomer because, these guys control corporations, they control finance, they do a lot, but most people are disconnected from that. So the point we've got to make is if you are a believer and you can search the scriptures and show me where I'm wrong or V's wrong, and I'm saying you want to approach it on a, quote, theological realm, then approach it on a practical realm. Joseph was given the dream interpretation of Pharaoh. Noah was told what was going to happen. Jesus had to flee into Egypt with his mother Mary and Mary's husband Joseph. They lived on gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The early Christians had to hide out for their lives. They ate by being able to trade the image of Caesar on a coin and bribe the guards or whoever to get them the food as they ran for their lives throughout the former Roman Empire. And what people were able to do is barter with goods. The thing that is astonishing to me, V, as someone who's got enough footnotes to basically, fill every shoe in an American shoe store, it seems like, is that the disconnect from history, thank public education for that, the disconnect from reality, thank video games for that, the disconnect from concern or even caring about future, thank the backslidden churches for that. The bottom line is, and what are you left with? You're left with a mental haze, a pile of goo, where God meant for the most amazing human organ, one of the most amazing human organs, the brain, to be unimpeded by perpetual electromagnetic attack. And what you come down to is this, that I understand why God's got to shake the heavens and the earth one more time, because, listen, that's why the Scripture says, awake, thou who dwellest in the dust of the earth. We are settling for so much of vomit. I think that's one of the most disgusting things, of vomit, being served to us on fancy china and being told that it's for our own good. Meanwhile, everything, your hope, your future, your children's hope, your future, your retirement, your ability to live is being robbed from you. And the people yawn on, nod on, or complain on. And that's my bottom line. If you've got the guts and you've got the desire and the ability to search the Scriptures to see what's true, you'll find out that there's a big difference between being a bitter, envious person and being a complete person, and knowing that God will not leave you in the condition you are in now, and maybe your attitude is affected where you've become, and that's courtesy. That's free for you, Scott. So the bottom line is that, not the one that sent me a question on retirement, the other one. So anyway, we're at the point, and V, I'll just let you have the last 4 minutes, because I kind of signed off with that statement. There's nothing more I know how to say. And by the way, it's anybody's call, but what more? Can you even imagine, V, what more you can say in the coming weeks? You can say, oh, yeah, Spain went down just like I told you. I mean, bottom line, 4 minutes, your bottom line, if you could never say anything again on talk radio.
One thing I would tell you, I mean, there's nothing more than I can possibly say than to prepare. If anybody's followed the alerts that I've put out there since being on Steve's website and the things I've done, and the interview that was done back on January 11th, I mean, one of the things I've always said is prepare. I've given you guys a roadmap. I've told you how the contagion is going to work and how it's going to play out. There's nothing left to do. Now it's gone past the point of, hey, look at this sign, look at that sign. Now all the road signs are passed. We've blown past all the road signs pretty much. Now the last road signs that are left, and I will admit to you, will be the Japanese collapse, followed by the failure of the euro, the collapse of the Asian markets, the Middle East blown up in flames, and then spilling it over to us. Okay, that's going to be the final coup de grace. Okay, but right now, before that happens, is the signs are all gone. Apart from that, and we need to prepare. People need to really, and most importantly, get their spiritual houses in order. And let me tell you something, and I said spiritual houses, not just the financial houses. I think before I got knocked off the air, I think I was actually talking. I didn't realize that I got cut out. This message is not just for people who have money and funds in markets and and exchanges. This message is also for people you only have a penny in your bank account. You're living on a shoestring budget. You're eating ramen noodles. This is for you as well. And one thing I want to tell people that are in that situation is that the Lord will take care of you. You will have to trust Him, but He will take care of you. And my advice to you, whatever you can scrounge, okay, take whatever you can. Buy little junk bags, little junk silver, pre-1964 silver coins. Get them. They're the cheapest things that you can buy, and it's a great way for you to build a little bit of wealth. Most importantly, put aside some food. Put aside some good water supplies. Put aside a way to defend yourself and your family should the need arise. But understand that whether you have $1 million in the bank or whether you have $1 in the bank, that this message of financial freedom is for you as well. You need not fear what is to come. But, and one of the things I always say, that this is going to be the most exciting time in the history of the church, because we're not going to go out singing Hold the Fort. We're going to go in with victory. We're going to be like David facing down Goliath, saying, you dare defy the armies of the Lord. And I will tell those people that are right now listening to my voice that you are struggling. God is with you. He sees where you are. You need not fear. Be of good courage. Do what you can to prepare, and the Lord will do the rest. Now, the rest of you who have the resources and the funds, please do what you can to get the metals, the precious metals, while there's still time, because it's getting harder and harder to acquire it, okay? I don't know what else I can say, apart from what's already been
that ends our program, V. Gentlemen, that ends our program. We're out of time.
God bless you both.
God bless you guys. Have a good night.
Steve, thank you. V, thank you. God bless.
Bless you, Doug. Goodbye, V. Goodbye, Doug and Joe. Thank you, Joe.